A big hello and a warm welcome to all of you to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm really happy and thrilled to have each one of you join us. I'm Nipasa Pradhan and I'm going to be your host for today's session. And we are streaming live right now on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And before we start with our webinar today with our guest, I have this very important disclaimer, and that is by watching our videos, you agree and understand that the information provided by our experts, including comments and replies from users, is not legal advice. Use of information is at your own risk. So, very, very thrilled today to be here with all of you to explore this topic that impacts countless lives out there and the future of our workforce. Definitely, today is election day, and we are looking ahead to ask what will US immigration look like in the next 5 years? I'm sure this is very, very exciting, overwhelming for all of us today. And with so many recent changes today, we are going to discuss and basically talk about what does America's future look like. And joining us today in an expert with decades of experience in immigration law is, for the first time, joining us here on Immigration and Jobs Talk Show, none other than Mr. Charles Kuck, who is the founder and managing partner of Cook Baxter LLC, where he leads the firm's global immigration practice. So it's really very, very exciting and such an honor to have you with us here, Charles, today. Thank you for joining us.
It is a joy to be with you today. Thank you so much. What an exciting day in the United States.
It is, it is. And I'm sure, I mean, you are a new face in our channel, but folks out there know you and they would love to know you better. So could you please tell us more about yourself?
Well, thank you. I'm actually the former national president of the American Immigration Lawyers Association, otherwise known as AILA. I'm also a founder and former president of the Alliance of Business Immigration Lawyers. I've been doing immigration law for 36 years. You can tell by how old I am and all this gray hair. I've represented more than 75,000 people in their immigration journey through all types of immigration, not just H-1Bs and labor certs and Ls, but literally everything from asylum to adoptions to naturalization. I've done it all. Including lots and lots of federal court litigation. I am one of America's leading immigration lawyers in the area of litigation and bringing justice to people whose cases have been pending for a really long time. I've also done a lot of lobbying in Congress. I've testified in Congress a couple of times. And I do a lot of commentary on the Twitter machine as well as it relates to immigration. But most of all, I am the grandson of immigrants. I grew up in an immigrant household, obviously not from India. Obviously, look at me. My grandparents are from Germany. My dad's first language was German. He was born in Brooklyn. I was born just over the river in New Jersey and spent my growing up years there living in my grandparents' house. And today, as quintessential American story, I don't speak German. You're I speak Spanish fluently. So quintessentially, I am the American experience. I mean, you look at me, I know I look like, well, he looks like an American. And in reality, I'm the grandson of immigrants, like everybody here in America is. So for me, America is a very special place. It is a place where you can truly make your dreams happen, regardless of who the president is. Just sometimes it's easier than other times.
It's really, truly an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us today, Charles. You look vibrant and radiant and so full of knowledge already. I'm super excited to have you burst out whatever you've got to say today.
I
Thank you so
should be
much.
nervous because of the election, but oddly enough, I'm not nervous about the election. I have a feeling of confidence in a good outcome. So it's where we stand.
Definitely. So, what can folks out there who have joined us expect from us today?
Well, let's talk about what immigration is going to look like. Obviously, where immigration is going depends on who the president is. Now, keep in mind, only Congress can change the law. And the law is 40,000 green cards in EB3, 40,000 EB2. That's the law. No president can change that. Presidents can change interpretations of the law, however. So, for example, a long-time interpretation of the EB1, EB2, EB3 numbers is that it includes family. So it's not 40,000 EB3s a year for 40,000 workers. It's only 18,000 because the average family size is 1.1. So the numbers are drastically reduced by counting family. That is an interpretation of the law. It can equally be interpreted to say, no, it's just people. Congress clearly didn't think that only 18,000 foreign nationals should get a job and a green card in America each year. It's a silly interpretation. But that takes a president who believes in it to get that interpretation changed. So a lot of what's going to happen in the next 5 years really depends on who's at the helm of the USS United States. And so today is the election. And although I think something like 73 million Americans have already voted early, America's very weird on elections. There's not just an election day. It's an entire season that starts 3 weeks before the election. And Trump's been campaigning since he lost the last election. So a lot will depend on what happens today. We don't know the vote total. So 73 million people have voted, but we don't have any idea how they voted. They don't release those numbers until after 7 p.m. Eastern time. Which is tonight. I'm on Eastern time in the United States. They begin releasing the vote tallies from those that close. And each state controls when their polls close. Sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 9. Sometimes judges order they stay open because there's long lines. American elections are a mess. But here's what happens. If you're elected, let's say Trump wins, he doesn't become president right away. He doesn't become president until January 20th. That's when our presidents are sworn in. So Biden would remain president really for the next almost 3 months, and then Trump would take over. Same thing with Harris. And we're not going to know tonight it's possible we know tonight, depending on where Georgia goes, where Florida goes. But unlikely we won't know until 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, when we get poll results out of Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and really further west out in Arizona and Nevada. So we don't know. I mean, it's just literally a toss-up. Every pollster says 50-50. One thing I will tell you this. Our law firm, we have 45 folks that work here. 40 of them can work and can vote. 40 of them are citizens. And every one of them already voted. Every single one. That's highly unusual in the United States. And they all voted for Kamala Harris. And that should tell you something about where we think and who will be a friend to immigrants and who will not be. I see far too much on the Twitter machine from folks from India who think that somehow Donald Trump is going to be really good on immigration. And Nipasa, that's just not going to happen. The very first plank in his platform on immigration is, day one, issue an executive order that children born in the United States to parents who are not citizens themselves are not citizens. Which, of course, is illegal because we have a constitutional amendment that says they are, but that lets you understand who he is as a person and what he believes about immigrants. Now, why Donald Trump hates immigrants so much, I don't know. He married 2 of them. Once again, immigrants doing jobs Americans won't do. Pretty funny.
You don't know.
And of course, Kamala her mom's from India, right? So she is half Indian. She is the quintessential American. Dad from Jamaica, mom from India. How does that even happen? How do they even meet? So, and the thing about that Kamala Harris is that she actually understands immigration law, which is crazy. Very few presidents do. But she has delved into the area. She was involved in it as a lawyer. She was involved in it as a prosecutor. And she was one of the best friends that immigrants had when she was a U.S. Senator. So she gets it. Now, unlike Biden, honestly, he's a nice guy. He's a nice old man, and he saved us from Trump. But he doesn't get immigration. He was never, ever, even when he was in the Senate, he was never good on immigration. He just wasn't. And same thing with Obama. He was never good on immigration. So we have a lot of hope for Harris. But let's talk about these policies, all right? So in the United States, there are 4 ways that you can come here legally and immigrate. You can get asylum. It's not happening right now from India, right? You can win the green card lottery, which of course India can't participate in, and you have employment/investor immigration and family immigration. Now, family immigration itself is pretty fixed, delineated by Congress. Congress has written the laws. There's not much you can do as a policy perspective on family-based immigration, except you can do what Trump did the first time, which was stop adjudicating cases. I know that because I sued him hundreds of times for not adjudicating cases. They just don't do them. They just put them in a box and don't do them. So you have to get courts to intervene. That's all they can really do. On employment-based immigration, however, there's a lot of bad things that can happen in a Trump administration and some good things that can happen in a Harris administration. So, for example, if Trump is elected president, one of the things that could easily happen on this employment-based immigration stuff is he can get rid of STEM OPT. So you're in the country, you're in a STEM field, STEM OPT gone. They are definitely going to do that. They're going to publish a regulation, STEM OPT is gone. One proposal written by Vice President Vance when he was in the Senate actually bars anyone from immigrating under EB-1, extraordinary ability, or EB-2, naturalization waiver, until they have lived outside the United States for 10 years after they graduate from a U.S. college. That would be crazy. That would eliminate a lot of people, including many Nobel Prize winners, from getting green cards in the United States. They can change how the H-1B lottery works. Right now, this next year is the first year of the higher fee, $215, I think. And you're gonna pick by the foreign national. So you, not your employer, but you are going to put in for the H-1B. Whereas what Trump will do will say, no. H-1Bs are by bidding. It'll be like the eBay of H-1B. Who will get paid? We will give H-1Bs to the highest paid people. That was his proposal last time. They just didn't get it published in time. That's going to be published in February of 2025. We're going to see drastic changes to the L visa program, where they're going to make it very hard, not that Biden hasn't done a terrible job with the program anyway, but make it much harder to prove who's a manager or executive. H-1B is already now more limited under the new Biden administration. They're going to crack down on what jobs require degrees. One of the things that's been happening in the United States over the last 10 years is there's been a movement away from requiring degrees for jobs that have historically required degrees. A great example is a software programmer. Why do you need a bachelor's degree to be a software programmer? You don't. Heck, look at all the people losing their jobs because AI is doing it, right? So a lot of negative things can happen in a Trump administration on employment and family-based immigration. Now, Harris, on the other hand, obviously will keep in place the program for STEM, obviously, probably expand it to a certain extent. But what she will also do is look at the H-1B program a little more critically so that it works more effectively for the United States. Because she's a prosecutor, I think they're going to go after job shops, companies that just throw in thousands of applications for visas that don't really have work for them. Or where they abuse the employee and say, we're not going to pay you. I think there's going to be a massive crackdown under the Harris administration for H-1Bs in that regard. I think we're also going to see some attempts to change some of the interpretations of how regulations work. We're also on family-based immigration. With her, the new Biden family parole program will keep going if we win the court case, which is today, by the way. And I don't think a lot of people in India realize this, Nipasa, but there are a lot of undocumented Indians in the United States. Do you realize that? There are a lot. There are hundreds of thousands of Indian nationals in the United States who do not have immigration status, who came as students and overstayed, who came illegally. Hundreds of thousands. Many of them are helped by the Biden family parole program. And so I think that will definitely continue if we win the case today. Literally, the hearing is today. on whether that program
Yes.
is legal. I think it is legal, but we'll see. I'm not the judge. So a lot of these key immigration issues will be drastically impacted negatively if Trump wins, and not at all, or positively if Harris wins.
You're absolutely right. I mean, if Trump or, they have similar stances like what you have just said, and on immigration, everything is going to be heightened with a lot more scrutiny and stricter enforcement. I think it's going to be even more hard with regard to immigration for sure. But thank you so much. I mean, those were great insights. I mean, so much in the first 15 minutes already, so much processing and so
There's
much
so much
happening, I'm
going
sure.
on. There's so much going on. Now, one of the
All right.
questions you gave me was on, what is going to happen today? All right. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not a prophet, but I
We
will tell
will
you this.
discuss on the
And,
questions, but I think I'll just quickly say hi to our folks who already have questions, and
ah,
you might see some of
the
the comments
questions. I love
popping up
questions.
there. Right. So big hello to Anjali and Luan Dial, Luca. I think we should pick up a few before we
Oh,
go
that's
on
great.
with our
Judy's got a
questions.
great question here. How might the election outcome impact the likelihood of establishing a pathway for undocumented immigrants? Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. If Trump is president of the United States,
Anjali, yeah, we're taking your question.
there is 0% chance that there will be anything to help undocumented immigrants. 0%. In fact, there will be a crackdown, as he has promised, to deport 11 million people. Now, that is a great way to destroy an economy. That's how it works. You want to destroy an economy? I don't know if you know this or not, but we've done this before. This wouldn't be the first time. We did this in 1957 and 1958 and 1959, 1960 on something called Operation Wetback, which today is, of course, a slur. Back then, we deported over 1 million Mexicans who had come to the U.S. during World War II to work in our fields and work in our factories while we sent men abroad to fight. Eisenhower created this, and we deported over 1 million Mexican men and 500,000 U.S. citizens. So it's not like the U.S. is fully capable of doing stupid things, which then led to a recession, because that's what will happen. So yeah, there's nothing coming from this. Now, Harris, on the other hand, has said repeatedly she voted for bills that were pro-reform when she was a senator. She will advocate for them. And think about this. This is actually really important to understand. Biden was always walking a tightrope on immigration because he wanted to run for re-election, and he knew he was running against Trump, who was anti-immigrant. If Harris wins, there's a whole new dynamic. Trump's not running again because he's probably going to be in prison. So he's not going to, maybe not. Maybe she'll pardon him, but he's not running again. So, and I believe that as Trump is defeated, so will we defeat this anti-immigration rhetoric. So it puts her in a much better position to work with Congress on not just passing this border bill on asylum that she says she'll pass. By the way, that bill would never pass again unless you add in some sort of legalization and take away the per country limit. Increase, and it's not just taking away the country. I've been an advocate for hey, the limit's the limit, and that's it. And people have really ragged on me about that, because if you're going to take the women away for employment, you got to take it away for family. But that doesn't solve the problem, right? Because all that does is share the pain, right? And now
it's not proportionate.
And now that ROW is terrible too. You have to increase numbers. If I've got a lot of clients who applied for their green card in 2012, 2013, 2014 from India, and they're not getting a green card for another 10 years, 15 years. Even if we reduce the number, even if we said, okay, Indians can get them all, it's still 20 years. And then that cuts the rest of the world off, which makes no economic sense to anybody. So there's a really good thing that would come from a Trump defeat, is that would be a defeat for anti-immigration forces. That would relegate them back to the ash heap of history and would embolden the president, I would hope, to work with Congress and look, let's fix this problem once and for all. We can do that. So there you go.
Thank you so much for taking that up for Anjali. Very passionately answered, I would say. Thank you, Charles. Well, let's go on. We have a lot of comments on LinkedIn as well. So let's take this Luan Dial, if I'm pronouncing it right. Do we pay for visa or trips when we get jobs in USA?
Well,
Okay.
that's a great question. And the answer is no, you should not be paying for the visa. So let's say, I'm going to assume you're talking about the H-1B visa. So the H-1B visa, the employer is required to pay for that, the lawyer fees and the filing fees. You also should not be paying an employer for the job. If immigration knew about that, they would deny the visa. I can assure you. I know people do it, but and I can't tell you it's illegal. I can tell you that immigration thinks it's fraudulent. But the trips, the airplane fares, that's on you unless you've got a really good employer. I mean, that's been my experience. You got to differentiate out the visa fees, the lawyer fees, and then travel expenses are different things.
Thank you. Thank you for taking that up for Luan Dial. Thank you for your question. Now let's take up Luca. This is on, today. Trump's advisors are already preparing massive cuts to legal immigration as soon as he enters office. That's what we were discussing. And everything from families and refugees to skilled workers is threatened. Economic insanity. What do you have to say about this comment?
What do I have to say about that is 100% accurate. Keep in mind, on refugees, there were essentially no refugees that came in 2019 and 2020. None. And keep in mind, that was when there was massive refugee crises abroad. Remember Syria? People forget about Syria. Germany took in 1 million Syrians. Not us. Not the Great White Hope. Not the Statue of Liberty. Not under Trump. So, yeah, it's America will revert to a 1924 close the borders, shut the system down kind of country, and we will enter a massive recession, the likes of which we probably have not seen since 1929. That's a reality. And then tariffs on top of that, which of course are taxes on U.S. citizens. So there you go.
It's crazy what can happen today. But what do you think? I mean, let's take on when can we expect the election results to be out?
That's a great question. So in some states, so America has 4 time zones. I don't know how many time zones India has, but America has 4. How many time zones does India have, Nipasa?
One only.
You have one? You have one time
Yes,
zone?
just one only.
That's crazy. It's a huge country.
It is, but we are under one time zone.
We have 4. So we have East Coast, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. What that means is, and about 70% of the population lives on the time zone Eastern, on the Eastern time zone, up and down the Eastern seaboard. Those polls, no election announcements are after the first polls close. The first polls close at 7 p.m. in some states. Some close at 8, some close at 9. Some states like Florida and Georgia count during the day, and then you will get initial results, especially on early votes, right at 7 o'clock. And but you won't get final results for Florida and Georgia until 8 or 10 o'clock at night, maybe midnight. States like Pennsylvania will give you initial results for maybe 20% of the votes at 7, but you won't get final results till 2 o'clock in the morning. Some states, we already know who won, like New York. Harris is going to win New York. All right, she just is, because that's just the way it is. I mean, it's most of the states in the Northeast are going to go for the Harris. So these swing states are what matter. So I have a home in Tennessee. Tennessee is red. It's as red as red as red as red. Trump wins it. So, and then you move every hour more in the night, you get the next set of polls. So this, if you've never watched an American election result, go online to one of these news sites like CNN and watch their video, because it's just fascinating. By the time California, and I will tell you, Western time zones, the last time zone, Pacific, we call it Pacific time, California, Washington, and Oregon, Hawaii, Alaska. Alaska probably go Trump, but they don't have a lot of power. Hawaii will definitely go Harris. California Harris, Washington Harris, Oregon Harris. Then there's Arizona, which is the only other state in the Pacific time zone. They're a toss-up state, but the election may well be decided by the time their polls close, which are at 11 o'clock Eastern time. I will likely be in bed because I like waking up at 2 in the morning and seeing what the results are or what they aren't. I will tell you this. In 2016, Florida reported at 9 o'clock that Hillary lost. I went to bed because I knew the election was over at that point. She was the first Democrat to lose Florida. If she lost Florida, she lost the election. Now, that's a different thing today. Now we know Florida is going to go Trump. We know that. So we don't really care about Florida's result. It's Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, all in the Eastern time zone, and then Wisconsin in the Central time zone, and if or North Carolina as well. If she wins 3 of those states, she's won. It's over. It's just over, and then the rest is just gravy. So that's kind of what to look out for.
Great, but still, again, so that's what we are expecting, folks out there, and I know how exciting this is and overwhelming at the same time. But I hope you're all vigilant and doing the right thing and practicing your right. Well, we have Bikram's question now. This is also on LinkedIn. We should take this up. But Charles, who is better precedent for tax cut for green card holder and citizens?
Well, if you're a billionaire, Trump. But if you're not a billionaire, not Trump. It's Harris, because Harris is not going to tax anybody. Taxes are going to go down for anybody under $400,000. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of money, and it is a lot of money. I get it. But in the United States, there are millions and millions and millions of people making more than $400,000, and billionaires that are paying essentially no tax. So she's going to go after very, very rich people. If you're, the average, ordinary American green card holder, citizen, Harris is your best friend on tax cuts, because Trump only wants to cuts for the rich people. And that's you can Google it. It's a proven fact that the people that benefited from his tax cut were, in fact, people that were billionaires. I will tell you this, something that a lot of people don't realize, Nipasa. If you're a green card holder in the United States and you die here, basically all of your assets are taxed at 50%. Whereas if you're a citizen, there's a $4 or $5 million exception. So if you're a green card holder and I don't really want to get a citizen, and you've got assets, you're a fool not to naturalize, because your relatives that you leave behind are going to be paying a lot of taxes. Just FYI.
Thank you for that very important information, Charles. I think that's a very important point you pointed out to be kept in mind. I think we should take up some of our questions now, Charles. Yeah. So let's go with mine. How might the election outcome directly impact key immigration policies such as family-based and employment-based visas?
We talked about that. I talked about that for the first 10 minutes. I mean, the reality is there's going to be impacts either way. But Trump, they're going to be mostly negative, and with Harris, they're going to be mostly positive.
Right. Well, and now let's take up another question. Let's take up Vikas's question.
I love this on YouTube. Question. This is a great question. Great question.
Right. Indian Americans have historically favored the Democrats, but there has been an incremental shift in the community's voting behavior in favor of the Republican Party this election. Do you agree? And what, according to you, is making this change, Charles?
Well, this is 100% true. We've seen a lot of Indian Americans that favor Republicans. And that's because Indian Americans are very entrepreneurial. They are the wealthiest immigrants in the United States, by far and away, wealthier on average than many native-born Americans. And that's just reality. And when you have wealth, you tend to go towards the Republican Party. Because historically, Republicans have taken care of wealthy people, and Democrats have historically, and I'm talking since about the 1960s, not before. Before 1960s, it was reversed. The parties kind of switched positions, and Democrats would kind of focus on the poor, the disadvantaged, and help people, which means taxes. You got to take money to pay for that, and so we've definitely seen that, which is with Trump kind of an irony. because he clearly does not like immigrants. It's just clear he doesn't like them. And so it's just the irony doesn't escape me, but it's absolutely true, especially over the last decade or so. And I would think that if Republicans had nominated a normal Republican who actually believed in Republican policies, because in many respects, Trump's not a Republican. He was a Democrat most of his life. Did you know he gave Kamala Harris $2,500 when she was running for Attorney General like 15 years ago? Yeah, he was a Democrat for most of his life, so he's not really a Republican. But the reality is Republicans tend to be more favorable towards businesses, and that's why.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for taking that up. And Vikas, such a lovely question. Thank you for participating. You can keep commenting if you have any further questions. Let's get back to Luan Dial. She's back with another question. I applied for a job in USA, New York, and they told me that I must pay for work permit. Is that legal?
No, that is quite illegal. And in fact,
And that's
if you really want to
ethical as
burn
well.
it, make a complaint to Wage and Hour. Go online to the Department of Labor, Wage and Hour, H-1B complaints. Just Google that and file a complaint against this employer so they stop doing this.
There you go. There is a permanent solution to that. Thank you, Charles. This is another.
I
Sure.
like this question. Go to this question from 1233. It's a great question.
Let's take this one.
It's a great question.
Anonymous, I wish we knew the name, but yes, we have seen a lot of reduction of tech jobs, which was caused by mass layoffs in the last 2 years. Which candidate could be the one trying to get back those jobs and stabilize the job market again?
Well, you have to ask yourself, this is a great question. Why were there layoffs? Were there layoffs because the economy reduced? No, the economy's growing like crazy. We're at 3%, worldwide envy for the growth of our economy. The problem you have with a lot of these tech jobs is they can be done by AI. This is a problem. This is a big problem for tech. I don't think either president is going to say, you can't use tech to do this work. Let's use Elon Musk as an example. Elon Musk buys Twitter and eliminates, 80% of the people working there? Now, initially, that meant the platform was garbage, but now it works again. What do you think the lesson learned from big tech was? You don't need all these people. And I'm going to tell you, tech jobs in the United States are not necessarily the future. First of all, you're not going to be able to get within about 10 years, H-1Bs won't be available to many tech jobs. They just won't be, because we won't be able to prove that you need a degree to do the job. So the reality is, I don't think either president is going to do anything to stabilize the tech market, because both presidents, to me, seem all in on technological advancement. Maybe the better question is, how are they going to help people who are displaced by modernization, mechanization, and AI? That's the better question. And the only party thinking about that is Harris and the Democrats. Republicans are like, well, go shovel poop at the chicken house. That's what they think. Go find a job somewhere. Whereas the Democrats are planning for that with retraining and rehiring and things like that. So Democrats, I think, your only option in that respect. Now, keep in mind, I'm a lifelong Republican. I've got a picture of Ronald Reagan hanging on my wall over here. But the reality is, the party of Ronald Reagan is dead. It's gone. That's the reality.
But too much of everything is scary. Look at technology advancement; it's scaring us now.
Well, I could be talking. In a year, I could be talking to AI for this interview, an AI video, right?
Yeah, they wouldn't need me.
You can
And
go
who knows?
online.
You would have an AI version of yourself doing your job online.
Yeah, you could just put me as an avatar, and they're talking to me, and they talk about that. There's no doubt that that's the future. If we can build enough power plants, we have to build more power plants. So that's going to happen. But the reality is, what does that mean for human beings? Does it mean that we're all going to be online playing video games all day long? Or does it move us to the next level? Hopefully it moves us to the next level. I'm a big Star Trek fan, so I believe in the future. I believe in the future. These things make us better. So there you go.
Definitely. Thank you. And Lawan Dial is back with saying, thanks, Charles.
You're welcome.
Then, and we have another question. Do we have to pay for anything when you meet all the requirements for the job after the interview?
No, you don't pay for anything other than your plane ticket. No.
I think she's making her budget, but definitely thank you for your question.
Wanda, don't be deceived by this. The internet in the job market is full of scammers. It's full of scammers, and you know sometimes you just hire a lawyer, have a consult with a lawyer who's got a good reputation, so you can get an answer if something's real or not. That is not real. That is a scam. Don't do it.
Now let's take up Shubham's question. There are two parts to this. Could the judiciary overturn immigration reforms passed after the 2024 election, potentially influencing policy implementation and enforcement?
Well, the courts do not overturn statutes in immigration law. This actually, I'm actually a law professor in my free time. I've been teaching for 25 years at Emory Law School. And the courts have have a doctrine called the plenary power doctrine. What that means is that when Congress legislates on immigration, that's it. That's the final word. The courts will never overturn an immigration statute. What they will overturn are executive branch or presidential policies and regulations. And we have a very conservative Supreme Court that is not necessarily friendly to immigrants, but generally speaking, they have not been super hands-on on immigration policy. For example, DACA is a great question. I mean, they could have ended DACA years ago and they didn't because, they realized this is going to hurt people. So could they overturn it? Yeah. I mean, they let a Muslim ban stand, right? The Muslim ban stood. So I would not suspect there's going to be a lot of overturning. And there's been a couple of recent cases out of our Supreme Court that limit different parties' ability to actually sue, whether they have what's called standing, whether they're actually allowed to sue, and then what jurisdiction the courts have over those cases. So there's a lot in play there, but I don't see them invalidating any congressional reforms. I do see them playing a hand in permitting some regulatory policy changes.
And he was continuing to say that the federal courts, including the Supreme Court, have the power to review and invalidate reforms deemed unconstitutional or non-compliant with existing laws.
Well, yeah, they clearly have that power in certain circumstances. There's actually an immigration statute that limits the power of the courts. Our courts, what's called jurisdiction, is defined by Congress. It's not defined by the Constitution, except as it relates to constitutional matters. And immigration issues are rarely, very rarely, constitutional, except when it comes to things like immigration detention and some deportation contexts.
Right. Thank you so much, Charles, for taking up all these questions. And thank you, folks out there, for participating. Keep commenting. We're really happy to have you participate. And maybe, Charles, you could tell us more, since we were talking about DACA. What could the election outcome mean for DACA recipients and other undocumented individuals who are in the US currently?
DACA, if Trump wins, DACA's gone. It's gone. It's history. It's over. He will end it with a regulatory publication in February. It's gone. If Harris wins, it's still kind of hanging in the ether sphere. It's still kind of, and there are something like 50,000 DACA recipients who are Indians, from India. So it's not, this doesn't just affect Mexicans. There's a substantial number of Indian nationals who have DACA. Right now, DACA exists for people that received it before September 2017. Biden republished DACA and allowed new applications between January and May of 2021, but then a court stopped it. And that case has been ongoing now for 3.5 years. Then there was oral argument in the Court of Appeals of the Fifth Circuit last month on DACA. That court will likely find that DACA is illegal, but will allow DACA recipients to keep renewing. And then it will go to the Supreme Court. And we will get a decision probably sometime in late 2026 or early 2027 from the Supreme Court if Harris wins. The hope, of course, if Harris wins, Congress just says, look, if you've got DACA, first of all, the youngest DACA recipient today is 22 years old. 22. The oldest DACA recipient is 42. These are no children. These are not children anymore. These are adults, many with families, many with kids, and it's just time. They're not going anywhere. This is their home. Fix the problem. The refusal to fix this is not just frustrating, but it's immoral. This is a morality issue at this point. When people have spent essentially their entire lives in the United States, deportation becomes banishment. It becomes maybe an unconstitutional punishment for them. And, an argument we can go into in the future.
And I mean, there's so many families who are breaking apart just for this reason, and it's so sad to see.
So I had two consults this morning for two people who had criminal convictions, unfortunately, both long-term, one from Vietnam, one from Mexico, long-term residents of the United States. They got addicted to drugs. They made some bad choices. They're gone the rest of their lives. They're never coming back ever. Our immigration laws are mean. I don't know if you've ever seen the play Les Miserables. Les Mis. I don't know if you've ever seen that play.
Yes,
It's a great
I've seen.
story. And
I think it's Jack Man, and it was like a musical,
the
right?
story of Jean Valjean, who represents mercy, and Valjean, and then Javert, who represents justice. Our immigration laws were written by Javert. They're all about justice. There's no mercy in our immigration laws, and that's what makes them so terrible.
Here you go. We have Shubham back again. He has another question saying, thanks for taking my question. I would also like to know how will the outcome of the 2024 US presidential election impact the future of immigration courts and the processing of asylum claims?
Well, there's a lot of Indians that come to the United States in the last couple of years seeking asylum. Honestly, I don't know where they're seeking asylum from. I don't know. Good question. I don't want to be in a pro-growth country. I don't know. Something. But our asylum system is completely broken. We have two different asylum systems. We have a defensive asylum system in immigration court, and then we have an affirmative system with the Immigration Service. There are over 1.6 million asylum cases in the affirmative part of the process. There's only 300 officers. 10 years. If you file today, 10 years before you get an interview. If you're in immigration court, there are over 3.5 million cases in immigration court. We have 675 judges. So if Trump comes in, they're going to want to hire judges. But here's your question. Who wants to be an immigration judge? What kind of person do you have to be that would enjoy the job that requires deporting people? You have to be a lawyer for 5 years. I'm not sure there are enough lawyers willing to sell their soul to do that 24/7. That's just awful. Harris wins. The reality is they will find more positive judges who will want to grant asylum and work these cases more efficiently. But we're never going to be able to deport our way out of this problem. And of course, if Trump really does win and want to deport people, you just can't pick people up you can't pick them up on the streets and deport them. If they've never been in proceedings before, you actually have to put them in front of a judge. And now you have 3 million people in front of you. That's why I said the system is entirely, completely, and utterly broken. There you go. All right. Any more questions?
I think we'll quickly go for a short break and be right back. And by then, we'll take up a few more questions, Charles, if that's fine. Welcome back,
Hey,
everyone, to Immigration and Jobs Talk Show. I'm Nipasa Pradhan, and this is the second half of this webinar we are having today on Election Day. What will U.S. immigration look like in the next 5 years? And we have with us none other than the very, very amazing guest for today. We have none other than Charles Kuck. Thank you so much for this very insightful webinar so far, Charles.
my pleasure. It's great to be with you today. I love talking immigration.
Absolutely. And so are our, I mean, viewers out there, they have such amazing questions. It's really lovely having your questions and have you participate with us. Thank you. So, Charles, I think, yes, we have Luandi thanking you. Thanks for the eye opener, Charles. Thank you. Well, I think I would have this next question. If you can tell us, how might enforcement priorities at agencies like ICE and USCIS shift depending on who is elected?
Well, for USCIS, it's really important to understand that Trump has promised through the individuals in his campaign who have immigration background and will work in the agency that every application will have to go through a fraud review and supervisory review before approval. That's not currently happening. That will slow things down to a crawl and will result in a lot of false client claims of fraud by the Immigration Service because they are notoriously bad at identifying fraud. So it's going to be very, very slow at USCIS if Trump wins. I don't expect any changes if Harris wins, other than hopefully getting better management. Immigration, USCIS is so terribly managed right now. They basically promote from within, so they don't really have people that have outside business type of experience, how to run a large organization. And as a result, they're really bad at their job. ICE, on the other hand, as for the last 4 years, they've kind of just been twiddling their thumbs like this, waiting for the chance to deport people. So ICE, which we call ICE, will be very proactive in looking and searching out people with removal orders and working with local police as they arrest immigrants for various crimes or driving violations and put them in removal proceedings. It's going to be big changes for both agencies.
I would also like to know, what impact could this election results have on the backlogs? I think that's what most of us are concerned about. And also the visa bulletin and family sponsored visa categories.
Well, of course, the visa bulletin is constrained by the law. Only Congress can fix the visa bulletin; it can't be fixed by anybody else. So, you could, as I mentioned earlier, the administration could reinterpret who is included in the 40,000 in each of the EB3 category, EB2, EB1 categories to only include actual workers. They could do that. I'm not sure they will, but they certainly can do that. We tried to get Biden to do it, and he wouldn't bite. But I don't think he had the right people on the bus. I think we might have better. I know the person currently advising Harris on immigration. He's fantastic, and I think we've got an in on getting that interpretation done. But as far as the other aspects of immigration, Trump's going to make it worse. The backlog you have today will be much worse under Trump. And Harris, keep in mind, Indian nationals have a friend in the White House, right? How does it get better than that to have someone with an Indian mom in the White House? It doesn't get any better than that. And she loved her mom. So I think there's going to be a movement, and I think we will see aggressive movement by the White House to kind of cut back on that backlog and increase legal numbers. But ultimately, it's Congress that controls it, not the president.
Definitely. But I mean, America being land of immigrants, I think we are so much excited to know what changes will happen in the immigration front. And I'm sure that's
If
going
I
to be
knew
a
that,
lot.
I'd be a rich guy. All I can tell you is what should happen, not that it will happen. I mean, I've been fighting for immigration reform since the last time Congress destroyed our immigration area in 1996. So it's almost 30 years that I've been going to Congress every year, lobbying them, talking to senators. The thing is, most of them know what they have to do. They're afraid of losing an election if they help immigrants. And that's why defeating Trump is so important, because it will allow us to throw that anti-immigration rhetoric out the door, out the trash can, and embolden some Republicans to say, I love immigrants, like George Bush always did. I want to fix this. So that's what will happen.
we really need some solutions for so many of these loopholes to be covered and be fixed as soon as possible. But definitely talking about those, I mean, the visa bulletin, the dates changing, I don't know when will that happen. But yes, we have some comments. Let's take up Dheeraj from LinkedIn. He's asking, will there be any effect on H-1B holders after the elections?
Not after the election, but if Trump wins after he takes office in January, you will see rapid changes to how immigration works. I would suspect they will immediately republish their rules, which I was one of the lawyers that beat back the rule on prevailing wages. And they will publish right away, probably with immediate effect for the March lottery, the H-1Bs based on job income, so that people with the highest salaries will get H-1Bs. I think that will be an immediate thing in February and March of 2025 if Trump wins. If Harris wins, you won't see any changes. None at all.
Thank you, Dheeraj, for your question, and thank you, Charles. It's been lovely having you. I wish we didn't have to wrap up so early, but I think this is it. And thank you so much for joining us today. But before we leave today's discussion, if you could leave all of us, especially our viewers, with an end note, it would be great.
All I can tell you is this: America is a great country. It's a great place to live. It is an land of opportunity for immigrants. One of the things I've dedicated my career to doing is helping immigrants achieve that American dream. You know, not everybody can come legally. Not everybody has that opportunity. Not everybody's got a degree. Not everybody's got a relative here. Some people come seeking refuge, and that's okay too. America's got room. We have room to grow. We have room to be. The only thing we have to worry about in America is if people stop coming here. People stop coming here, we do have massive problems. But until then, until we talk again, good luck. Pray for America tonight. Pray for a Harris win, and we'll move forward.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Charles. It was really lovely having you. I'm really looking forward to having you back as soon as possible for such passionate discussions on immigration.
I
Lovely
look
having
forward.
you. Have a great day ahead and enjoy your day ahead.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Thank you, folks. Thank you so much for joining us here on Immigration and Jobs Talk Show on today's discussion on Election Day. So, who is going to win and what is the next 5 years going to look like on the immigration front for the US? Well, I think we'll just have to stay tuned, and you have to stay tuned on Immigration and Jobs Talk Show because we are coming up with a lot more updates on today, Election Day. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Nipasa Pradhan saying bye for now.